Wes Anderson, producer, writer, but most prolifically, a whimsical, quirky director. His films are seen as playful, quaint pieces of art, but to really understand the deeper elements of his films, we need to look at the auteur theory and how he fits into this idea. In 1948, Alexandre Astruc, a French film critic, said filmmaking is a way of expression. Like other art forms such as painting or writing, he created a new term, camera stylo, meaning how directors should use their cameras to express their feelings like how a writer would use a pen. 6 years later, a critic/director Francis Truffaut popularised these ideas and developed the auteur policy in the article A Certainty of French Cinema. Truffaut led the French New Wave movement, an attack on the traditional way of making films in France, or what Truffaut referred to as the tradition of quality. He believed that film should be an expressive art form and the role of the auteur is to express the personalities, fears, hopes, dreams, anxieties within their films. Andrew Sarris, an American film critic, brought the auteur theory to the English-speaking world and released his notes on the auteur theory. Sarris defined what characteristics auteurs' films need to have to comply with this theory. 1. They need to show a technical competence. 2. They need to have a recognisable personal style. And 3. The films must have a personal significance to the director. Sarris states that if a director has no technical competence, no elementary flair for cinema, he is automatically cast out from the pantheon of directors. Wes Anderson shows a technical competence throughout his films, noticeably using symmetry, which is the calling card of the Wes Anderson shot, but places deeper meaning throughout his work, such as how the composition represents relationships in the Grand Budapest Hotel. At the beginning of the film, Anderson places Zero behind Mr. Gustave, or at the edge of the frame, while Mr. Gustave is placed at the front or is central. This shows the difference in stature and the levels of respect between the two. The power dynamic is switched when Zero saves his superior from jail, and the composition represents this change as both characters are framed equally, as Mr. Gustave then sees Zero as more of his equal. Anderson also uses mise-en-scène to show his technical competence through the change of colour and aspect ratio in the Grand Budapest Hotel. Colour is used to set the mood and tone of the film, but is also used as a narrative device. In the early, more successful years of the hotel, the colour palette is strikingly more vibrant, packed with bright reds, rich purples, and inciting, appealing pinks, compared to the hotel we are shown now with dull oranges, lifeless greens, and wooden tones, all representing the change in stature of the hotel. Aspect ratio is also used as a narrative device to represent a change in the time period. The 1980s intro is in 1.85 as typical of the decade. In the 1960s, it's in anamorphic, 2.4, and in the 30s, it's framed in The Academy, 1.37. Sarris makes it a requirement for all auteurs to make films that have a similar narrative structure, characters, themes, visuals, actors, or costume. Anderson creates a strong personal style through the reoccurring themes in his films of death, divorce, forbidden love, and the idea of fatherhood. As well as this, he casts similar actors to strengthen his personal style, such as Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Jason Schwartzman, Tilda Swinton, Willem Dafoe, and uses a similar crew such as Yeoman, who was the cinematographer for 8 out of 10 of his films. Stockhausen worked on 5 of his films as the production designer, and Desplat composed music for 5 of his films. As well as this, Anderson himself has co-written every single one of his films, which shows the significant control he has over his work. All of these factors display Anderson's distinctive personal style, as they are noticeable characteristics throughout his filmography. Wes Anderson films have become synonymous with unique production design that makes us feel as if we have entered a human dollhouse. According to American critic Matt Zoller Seitz, Anderson uses material synecdoche. Seitz defines this as showcasing objects, locations, articles of clothing that define personalities, relationships, and conflicts. For example, Chaz and his son's red jumpsuits, Mandel's cakes, or Mr. Fox's tree. Anderson's use of mise-en-scène reinforces his distinctive personal style, as British academic John Carkey states, mise-en-scène is crucial for creating a personal style because it is in the mise-en-scène that the auteur transforms the material which has been given to him or her, so it is in the mise-en-scène that the auteur writes his or her individuality into the film. Sarris's third requirement is that the film needs to have a significance to the director, such as themes of childhood, loneliness, divorce, death, revenge, etc. Anderson hides an abundance of personal significance within his films and the themes that surround them. Anderson's parents divorced when he was 8, and trying to cope with this disintegration of his parents' marriage, Anderson often misbehaved at school.
He's one of the worst students we've got.
In consequence, Anderson grew up at an early age in this broken family. Due to this, divorce, dysfunctional families, and the idea of fatherhood are all relevant reoccurring themes in his filmography, such as the turbulent marriage of Moonrise Kingdom, the dysfunctional family of the Royal Tenenbaums, and the ideas of fatherhood throughout Fantastic Mr. Fox. Furthermore, he would often include in his films adults acting like children and children acting like adults. The music in Anderson's films are often a mix of folk and rock containing original scores as well as songs from his childhood. Songs like Search and Destroy by Iggy and the Stooges support the adrenaline kick of the shootout in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Hell off of my boat!
Or for more somber moments like Richie's suicide in The Royal Tenenbaums, with a track from the late Elliott Smith, Needle in the Hay. The use of music in his childhood solidifies how he represents himself in these films. Anderson often misbehaved at school, and this could relate to how he is rebellious in his filmmaking, not sticking to traditional rules but opting for a more stylised approach to film. Possibly put best by Whitney Crothers Dilly, a major voice in the 21st century, Anderson is one of the most innovative filmmakers working in cinema today. Wes Anderson is the perfect candidate for the study of an auteur. Not only does he fit Sarris's 3 characteristics, I believe he defines himself through them, creating an alternative approach to mainstream filmmaking while disguising the hard-hitting issues and themes within his humorous narratives.